Welcome to Craft School. In this video, I'm going to show you a few more things that you can do with this frosted paper. Now, this is a series because we're building a bouquet, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to attach seeded eucalyptus to wire. I have these little mini mums, and then two kinds of leaves. I've already done a video on making a gorgeous peony, and then we also have some beautiful cosmos that we've made, and together with all these flowers. The last video, I'm going to show you how to take everything and create a bouquet that you can use for your wedding, or you can use it as a gorgeous centerpiece. So let's get started. For materials, you'll need a pattern that you can print, or we have SVG cut files for your personal cutting machine. I have this lightweight, text weight, beautiful frosted paper, and I have this in Botanic, Moss, True Gold, and Antique Gold. I have some different wires here that are all paper covered, and we have a 20 gauge wire for your heavier leaves, and then a 26 gauge wire, and then I have a 26 gauge white paper covered wire. I have a gold floral tape and a green floral tape, and then a gold Sharpie. For tools, I'll have a low temperature hot glue gun, needle nose pliers with wire cutters, and scissors. So I've already prepped all of these flowers and greens, and they're ready for the bouquet. So I'll show you how I did all of those. We'll start with the little mini mum. It's very simple. There's 3 different sizes of petals, and you'll take the edge of your scissors, and very carefully you'll want to grab right onto the base where it connects to the center so that you don't pull off your petals. And you'll just curl the tips. You'll want to give it a nice hefty curl, but without ripping it. You'll do that to all 3. And then starting with the largest, I'll place a dot of glue in the center and place that second to the largest, the middle size, and then the smallest goes into the center. Now that looks pretty flat, but once you've cooled this and rotated a bit just so you have some variety, I'll go ahead and run my finger along the first layer and just press them upward. You can do this before you glue them in, but oftentimes I find that when I press them together, it flattens it out a bit. So, you know, it's either way, whatever order you like to do them. So there's my center layer, and then I'll do the same for my second layer. Then my third layer, I'll leave it pretty much as it is. So if you're doing a wreath or something that you can glue these flat onto the surface, you're done. But if you want to add this into a bouquet, here's what my trick is. I have this little piece of green cut out, and it has a kind of a hole in the center. If it's cut out in your cutting machine, let's see here, I'm going to use my 20 gauge wire. If you've cut it out by hand, you can just poke a hole. I'll go ahead and turn this at a 45-degree angle. You can see that, and then slide that right into the circle, the center, and I'll put some glue right over the wire and around that circle, and then place that onto the back of my flower. And I can feel where the wire bends, and I'll just hold that for a few seconds until it cools off so that I make sure my wire's coming out straight and doesn't fall over. And since this is a paper covered wire, I don't need to use floral tape to finish it, but if you're using a wire, you may want to add some floral tape. I'm just going to fluff it up a bit, and that's ready to go into the bouquet. Now you'll notice that I have these other little flowers that are very similar, but they're smaller. And you know, this is kind of a filler flower. I wanted some more gold in this bouquet, and you can see it's exactly the same. There's actually 3 pieces of 3, and I glued them just like I did the little mini mum, and then I have a little piece of gold on the back to hold the wire on. So, you know, this is a technique you can use with a lot of flowers. So this is a little seeded eucalyptus piece, and I cut it in gold because I wanted a little bit more of that gold color with the purple. It's so on trend right now. And I cut this on the cutting machine. If you guys want to try cutting it by hand, go for it. I don't think I would have the patience, but on the cutting machine it's perfect. It's very delicate, and my tip for this is make sure it's not a very sticky mat, because you don't want these little tiny pieces popping off when you're taking it off the mat. Another thing about this paper covered wire is it does stick better to paper, and you don't have to, use a paper putting the wire between two papers like I've always suggested with the other wire. But let me show you both techniques. So I'm going to just run a very small bead of glue at the end of the stem. And I'm choosing the white wire here because I actually am going to paint the top of it gold and then use the stem tape to cover the rest. Now, if you're using just a floral wire, you can go ahead and use green. So this is my paper covered wire. Let me get a piece of paper here so I don't ruin my table. And I'll just color that. This is one of the things we love about it, because that way we can have wire any color we want. I'll go ahead and cover the wire as far down as I feel like I need so that it doesn't show when I make the bouquet with this gold tape. But if I'm using a green wire, this is what I would do. So you can't color the green wire, right? And it's metal, and you also want to make for sure that the wire doesn't just pop off, because wire and hot glue just don't really work together. So pretend this is a scrap. I usually like to save my scraps, and I'm just going to cut a little tiny piece of paper. I don't like the blunt edges, so I'm going to go ahead and make a point on both sides. Add a little glue, and then sandwich the wire between the two pieces of paper. And once that is dry, then you'll go ahead with your floral tape. Floral tape works best if you start it on top of paper, so I'm using the bottom of the stem and then just wrapping it down. And the reason why I decided, I'd probably go down further, but I'm just going to show you this short bit for now. But the reason why I wanted to add this into the bouquet is I wanted a bit of a more rustic looking bouquet, and in order to do that you have to have little tiny bits and pieces. So this is a really fast way to add that additional shape that makes the bouquet look a little more rustic, which you'll have to see in the next video. All right, so that's ready. Now I have 2 more leaves. So this one here, you can see the score lines on the cutting machine. I used my Cricut, so it has a scoring tool. It left these little marks, but it doesn't really look as folded. I like this as a guide, but then I'll take the edge of my scissors and just lightly press into my hand just to accentuate those score lines. And what happens when I do that is it actually gives more shape to the leaf. It makes it curl in a bit. And then I might fold it in half so it looks like this, and that's ready to go on a wire. But we'll do these two together because they're very similar. This one has no score lines, so I'll go ahead and either fold it in half, or you can use the edge of your scissors to make a score line there as well. And then you can see on this leaf how it has these different fingers. I'll go ahead and press a line on each of those fingers, and that alone gives the leaf so much shape that you really don't need to do anything else. So this is a similar technique as what I just showed you with the little seeded eucalyptus. I have different weights of wires here, but I'm going to go ahead and use the lightweight wire on this smaller leaf and then a heavier one on the larger leaf. And if you don't like the color, you can see it doesn't quite match. You can always use a marker or paint the stems a little bit if you want to. However, these leaves are so big that I'm envisioning them to be tucked into the bouquet, so they really won't show. So a very simple way to do this. Paper covered wire, this is good enough. You can leave it as is. If it's a wire without paper over the top, same idea, where we'll take a scrap of our paper and I like to cut kind of a long skinny leaf shape. So it's pointed on the ends and then round in the middle. And then add some glue onto the back and sandwich the wire. And you know, this looks a little bit more finished. Even if you do use the paper covered wire, This is a great way to finish it if you feel like those backs of the leaves might show in your bouquet. So we'll do the same thing with this leaf. I'm going to use a lighter weight wire. I think that after, 4 years of making these types of flowers, I've learned some things that seem to work better than others, and there's been too many times when I've glued wire onto paper and they fall off. So we felt like this was really the best technique, and it's easy, and it's a nice way to finish. Again, you can go ahead and finish this with floral tape, especially if you feel as though some of this might show. If you're doing a really loose bouquet where some of your stems will show, you might want to do this. If you're doing a bouquet that's fairly tight and has a lot in it, you may not need to do this. And one of the tips I like to tell people is I'll sit down and do all my taping at once because it does get a little sticky. The trick with floral tape is to make sure you stretch it and use the heat of your fingers to activate it so that it will stick. So it gets a little sticky. All right, this is ready. So this is the third set of flowers, and you'll want to watch the other two if you haven't seen them yet. And then the next video, we're going to show you how to take all the flowers and put them together in a gorgeous bouquet.